You know, life has a cruel sense of irony sometimes. The people you love most, the ones you'd sacrifice everything for, can turn out to be the ones who forget you the fastest. This is a story about how my only son left me in a nursing home and never looked back, and how 2 years later he walked into my office, begging for a job. But this isn't a story of anger or revenge fueled by hate. No, it's a story about silence, patience, and dignity. About how sometimes life delivers justice more beautifully than we ever could. Before we begin, if you love stories that touch your heart, true emotional stories of strength, betrayal, and redemption, please subscribe to Revenge's Echo and turn on the notification bell. We post stories that remind you how powerful quiet revenge can be. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from today? Your comments make me feel a little less alone in this big, wide world. Now, let me take you back to the day my world fell apart, and how I built it again, piece by piece. My name is Evelyn Hart. I was 64 years old when my husband, David, passed away. We had been married for 40 years. 40 years of shared laughter, small fights, Sunday breakfasts, and long drives that always ended at the same diner. He was my anchor. When he died, I lost not just a husband, but the rhythm of my entire life. After the funeral, the house felt like a ghost. I'd walk past his favorite chair, still tilted toward the TV, and imagine he'd be back any minute. But the silence never broke. Our only son, Daniel, came by often those first few weeks. He helped sort out the paperwork, clean the garage, and said, "Mom, you shouldn't live alone in such a big house." I smiled and told him I was fine, but he kept insisting, "Mom, you'll have company in a care home. It's safer. You'll be looked after." I thought he cared. I thought he was protecting me. But I didn't realize then, he was protecting himself from responsibility. 2 months later, I moved into Willow Creek Senior Living. It was clean, bright, full of nice people, but it wasn't home. The first night, I unpacked my things slowly, our wedding photo, David's wristwatch, and a small plant from my kitchen window. I placed them on the nightstand like little anchors of memory. Daniel promised to visit every Sunday. He did, for 3 weeks. Then once a month. Then, nothing. Every Sunday after that, I'd sit by the window, watching other families arrive, arms full of flowers, cake, love, and every time the door opened, my heart would skip. Maybe this time he'd come, but he never did. Sometimes I'd hear nurses whisper, "She's such a sweet woman. Poor thing, her son never calls." And I'd smile as if it didn't hurt, because pretending was easier than explaining. Days at Willow Creek had a rhythm. Breakfast at 8, exercise at 9, quiet time by noon. I tried to fill my days, helping other residents with paperwork, teaching knitting to the ladies, reading old romance novels aloud to those who couldn't see well anymore. But every night, when the lights dimmed and the laughter faded, loneliness crept in like cold air through a cracked window. Sometimes I'd whisper to my husband's photo, "David, do you think I did something wrong as a mother?" He doesn't even call anymore. The picture, of course, said nothing. But deep inside, a small flame of strength started burning. I told myself, I won't die forgotten. Not like this. One morning, while volunteering in the kitchen, I met Mr. Carter, a retired chef. He was 70, full of stories, and always humming old jazz tunes. He saw me chopping vegetables clumsily and said, "You handle that knife like you're fighting it." I laughed for the first time in weeks. He chuckled, "Well, let's fix that. Cooking's like life, steady hands and patience." We started cooking together every afternoon. Simple dishes, soup, pie, biscuits. The smell began drawing other residents in. They'd taste and say, This is better than anything we get served. Soon, we turned it into a small weekly event. Sunday supper. Everyone contributed. Miss Helen decorated tables with flowers, Mr. Brown played his harmonica, and I handled the accounts. For a few hours each week, we forgot we were left behind. We laughed, we shared stories, we were alive again. One afternoon, our director walked in during Sunday supper. She said, "Evelyn, local offices keep asking about catering options. Would you ever consider expanding this?" Her words planted a seed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, why not? Why not prove that age doesn't mean the end of usefulness? The next week, we registered a small community business, Golden Hands Catering. Mr. Carter became head chef. Helen managed presentation, and I handled accounting and orders. We started small: birthday parties, local church gatherings, community events. People loved us, not out of pity, but because our food came with heart. Every time a customer said, "That was delicious," I felt a piece of my dignity return. Within a year, we outgrew the nursing home kitchen. A local investor, the son of another resident, offered to fund a real space. We rented a small commercial kitchen, hired 3 young assistants, and started delivering to offices downtown. We were featured in a small-town newspaper, "Retired Residents Build Thriving Business." And there I was, apron on, smiling beside my team. That photo hung in our kitchen. For once, I wasn't the woman left behind. I was Evelyn Hart, founder of Golden Hands. 2 years passed like a warm breeze. We became a known name in the city. Our motto, "Made with Memory," was on every package we sent. Then one crisp winter morning, my secretary, Clara, walked into my office. She was holding a job application. "Ma'am, there's a new candidate for the finance assistant position. He seems experienced, but..." Something about the name caught my eye. She handed me the file. Daniel Hart. My hands froze. For a moment, I just stared at the paper. My son's name. After 2 years of silence, Clara asked, "Should I schedule an interview?" I nodded slowly. "Yes. Tomorrow morning?" He walked in wearing a navy blue suit, a folder clutched tightly in his hands. He looked older, thinner, his confidence dimmed. "Good morning," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Please, have a seat." He smiled awkwardly. "Thank you, ma'am." "Tell me," I asked, "why do you want to work here?" He hesitated, looked down and said, "I lost my business last year. Things haven't been easy. I just need a stable job." I nodded, studying him quietly. His hands trembled slightly. For the first time, I saw not arrogance, but humility. Then I removed my glasses. He looked up and froze. His face went pale. "Mom?" I said softly. "Yes, Daniel." It's me. Tears welled up in his eyes. "I didn't know. I'm so sorry." I folded my hands and said, "Apologies don't erase pain, Daniel, but they can rebuild bridges if you're willing to walk across." I didn't reject him. I didn't scold him. I hired him. Not because he was my son, but because I wanted him to see. See what I'd become. See what I'd built from the ashes he left behind. He started working the next week. At first, he avoided me, too ashamed to look into my eyes. But slowly, he began changing. He worked harder than anyone, came early, stayed late, never once used our relationship for advantage. He'd sometimes bring me coffee silently, place it on my desk, and whisper, "Thank you for still believing in me." I never replied, because sometimes silence teaches more than words. Months passed. One evening, after everyone left, he knocked on my office door. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk? Just as mother and son?" I nodded. We went to the same diner I used to visit with his father. He sat quietly for a long time, then said, "When Dad died, I panicked. Everything felt like too much. I thought putting you in that home would help both of us. But I was wrong. I lost you. And myself. His voice broke. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time in years, I reached across the table and held his hand. Daniel, pain changes people. But you came back. That's what matters. He looked at me, eyes full of regret. Can you ever forgive me? I smiled. I already did. The day I chose to build my life again instead of hating you. Today, Golden Hands runs in 3 cities. Daniel still works beside me, not as the boss's son, but as someone who learned the value of love the hard way. Every year on my husband's birthday, we visit his grave together. Daniel always places flowers and whispers, "Dad, I finally became someone Mom can be proud of." And I smile, because I know he learned the lesson life tried to teach through silence. That silence is not weakness. That forgiveness isn't surrender. And that revenge doesn't always have to be cruel. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is rebuilding yourself so beautifully that the people who broke you can never recognize the version of you they left behind. My name is Evelyn Hart, and this was my story of heartbreak, dignity, and silent revenge. You've been listening to Revenge's Echo. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Tell me below. Did this story remind you of someone in your life? Someone who underestimated you until you rose again? Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes silence says everything.